I was listening this morning to our episode with Joan,
Mm-hmm.
the brunch talk one,
Yeah.
because a mutual friend of ours was listening to it as she was getting ready this morning. And so she kept texting me through the whole thing.
What
And
was
she
she
was like,
saying?
it's so weird listening to your voice while I'm like getting dressed in the morning. I'm like, ooh,
Oh,
kinky.
it's
But
just weird when you hear someone saying that they're actually listening to the show and they give you like live feedback on it. It's
I
a little intense,
know
right?
she was literally texting me as she was listening to it. And it was kind of cool. But
Mm-hmm.
like she mentioned, because she put up a post in one of my groups recently trying to get information from men on what it is they're really looking for and
Mm-hmm.
to see how shallow they actually are. And then she's listening to the podcast and she was like, there was my answer. And I was like, ah.
Oh, well, that's nice. I mean, that's what we want is for people to get like well, the Oprah thing, enlightening moments from our show, to have like a moment where we're saying something and they're like, that's what I've been wondering all this time. And it feels kind of
Mhm.
good that people have those moments just based on the conversation that we're having.
Yeah. And I guess the moment was when we were talking about entitlement.
Mm-hmm.
And so it made me realize like that's definitely something for us to continue to talk about
Yeah.
for our listeners. But I also wanted to listen to it as well because I was curious for one, how it would sound being in person.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, it sounded fine to me.
Mm-hmm.
And two, I was wondering how drunk do I sound towards the end?
What did you think? What were your thoughts about the end?
um, I feel like maybe next time we don't pour so much champagne into the glasses. I think we just started to like unravel a little bit.
It happens. I mean, that's why we have the alcohol, so we can like see these different sides of ourselves,
Mhm.
and give the audiences something to enjoy while they're watching the show. I was quite thoroughly entertained, I will say, with your interactions with yeah, very
Yeah.
entertained. Yeah.
Um, it's different, right? When we are doing them with people that we have chemistry with, right? We have
Hmm.
chemistry with our friends and in person as well, because you get to feed off of the energy a little bit more.
Yeah.
So it's
I mean, are you looking
interesting.
forward to next month when we do this again? When we find our next guest to come on?
I am. I'm even thinking like we have our guest coming on to do an episode about depression, and she happens to be in town this coming up week. So I might even see if we can't somehow work that out to where we record it with her here in person. Because I mean, obviously, we can't have you in person, which I really wish that you and I were at least in the same town to do
I
this in
know.
person. Because I
You're
think it
like
would be
all the way in
perfect.
slow. And I'm like, you got to get down to LA because it's like, it's a lot more happening. Slow is kind of slow. I got to be honest.
There is definitely a reason why this place is called Slow, and it's not just some acronym for the actual name of the city, but it's like legit slow. Yeah.
A little bit. And it's like, I wish the dating pool was bigger there. I feel like if you're like a single person, you should always be where there's a lot more fish in a way. And I feel like when you're in a smaller pool, you end up like feasting on each other's dinner all the time.
Which is the whole point of what we were talking about in that episode.
Yeah, it's a little,
Feels
yeah.
incestual after a while, but
I mean, I can see that because it's like, you meet one guy and you're like, oh, I know your friend. We have a yoga class together every blah, 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 blah. And you're just like, okay. But then it's
exactly.
easier for those things to happen. So, I mean, today's show, when we're bringing on our guest today, I mean, we're talking about this now, but by the time the audience is listening to this show, be months later, actually, technically, because we're recording for season 2. So
Yes.
we're in
So
the
should we
midst.
start for our listeners?
I mean, no, not yet, but for the pre-show, it's like we're recording in the midst of season 1 right now. I mean, we still have
Right.
an episodes that we have to finish, but we've, leaped or whatever you want to call it ahead so we can like do our second season because we have this wonderful guest who is someone
Mhm.
that to talk about sex, which I'm actually kind of excited about our next season. I was excited about the first season, but the next season is going to be cool too because we're going to be talking a lot about sex. It's the one thing that we all want but are afraid to talk about.
I know I've been working on so many different topics for that season and realized that it's just almost endless. And it's
Yeah.
not even sex in the sense that everyone's probably thinking of, but
Mhm.
when you're talking about any kind of intimate relationship, sex is on the table, and
Yeah.
sex with your partner, sex with other people, sex is everywhere.
It is everywhere. And sex sells. It's like, even in the simplest products, sometimes you see that they're using sex to somehow sell cereal sometimes, there's like innuendos. No, I took a class in college one time where we paid attention to different ads. We started to point out the different sexual innuendos that are in things that you don't even really notice at first until you dissect it apart. And it's for a reason. Subconsciously, we start to associate things we think of, and it gets our heart rate going, and we don't know why. And we're like, I'm looking at a box of Cheerios. What's happening right now?
How about the Carl's Jr. ads that they used to always run?
Exactly. Oh my
I
God, with
don't think
Paris Hilton and
I
Kim
have
Kardashian.
never eaten there. I have never
Ah,
eaten at Carl's Jr., but I will never forget any of their ads.
yeah, they were suggestive to say the least. 1 second before we start for our listeners, I just want to grab
Okay,
something.
sure. I'll just sit here with our viewers and stare at you quietly. Just kidding.
And I'm back. That was quick, right?
That was super quick. I did a little mini staring contest with our viewers. They probably think I'm absolutely bonkers now, but it's cool.
It's so funny how sometimes we end up wearing the same outfits. Like I've noticed in some of the shows, like we both either end up in
We
wearing
match.
black, or today we're wearing like all gray. It's hysterical. I love it.
It's like we plan it, but we don't.
We don't. It's like somehow we get in the same wavelength and then we're wearing like the exact same outfit.
Well, maybe that will just mean we're going to be on the same mindset for this episode.
Hopefully. I am like sitting here, like I know you see me with my attention diverted a little. What I'm trying to do is my husband and I are going on a date tonight, right? He planned
Nice.
a little thing at this restaurant called Italy.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna go to like this tabletop thing, rooftop thing, for pasta and pizza. And then
Mm-hmm.
afterwards, we're going to go see the movie Green Knight, which is a movie I've been wanting to see. But then he just gave me the task of buying the tickets at the last minute because I have the AMC rewards card or whatever.
Oh,
So I'm like sitting here because I have like 30 seconds. Yes, I have like 30 seconds left to like buy my tickets or these seats are gone. So wait, I
right.
got it. I'm done. Whew.
Woohoo.
It was like right under the timeline. I was like, shit, I want to get these tickets because I really want to see this movie. It looks really good. But okay, my my attention is back. I am back on
Nice.
track. Let's go.
All right. For our listeners. Listeners, welcome back. We've missed you. We are starting season 2 with a fucking bang.
A fucking bang, and pun intended, right?
Honestly. So, season 2 is going to be all about sex,
Mhm.
sex, and more
More
sex.
Because what else do we not like to talk about and think about and look up? I mean, wait, before we get into it, speaking of
Mhm.
sex, I know you've heard, I mean, but I feel like I should or should not talk about this because it's so recent, but okay, it's in the news right now. sex
Which
worker.
won't be current when
Yeah, that's why
everyone
I'm a little,
listens. So it's
yeah.
all good. It's all
It's
good. Bring
okay.
it up.
Okay. So in the news right now, because our show today is about sex addiction, this is something that deals with sex addiction in a way. In the news, it was just announced that OnlyFans is going to stop allowing, pornographic materials to be on their platform. Now, in the last year during the pandemic, remember the girl Bad Baby or whatever her name is? She was from the
Mm.
Dr. Phil show, and she was famous for saying the line, "Catch me outside, how about that?" or whatever. Anyway, she became a millionaire in 2020 from releasing, softcore, or I didn't subscribe to it, but OnlyFans is mostly known for, people doing like hardcore, softcore, whatever, just sexual things for the most
Right.
part. So she even tweeted that she has become a multi-millionaire and can retire if she wanted to right now from the sex work that she put up onto her OnlyFans page. Now, a lot of people in the industry, I've been reading on Twitter, and they've been complaining like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this is an attack on the sex workers. We've helped build this company to a multi-billion-dollar company, and then you just turn your backs on us." And it's just so funny how people's drive for sex and to see it can turn a girl into a millionaire, and all she has to do is show
Mhm.
her titties and maybe, penetrate herself a few times with a dildo or two. And it's just like, wow. What are your thoughts on it? Do you agree with pornographic material for one?
Mm. So I think there are a lot more people out there not having as much sex as they would like than
Mhm.
those who are satisfied. So think about it in terms of this. You have the types of people who are not having sex at all right now because they don't have a partner.
Mhm.
You have the people who are too young, really, and just are curious about sex.
Yeah.
You have the people who are having sex with a partner but are unsatisfied. And you have the people who have a partner who are just not getting enough of the sex that may be satisfying, but maybe they're not getting enough of it. So now they're turning to other ways to be pleasured.
Mhm.
So when you think of all that big pool of people, that is, and I don't know specific numbers on this one, but just from what I've seen, I would say it's the majority versus the minority of people who are completely 100% satisfied in their sex life.
Mhm.
Probably actually a really small number.
Yeah. So you're saying that a very small percentage of people are actually sexually satisfied within their lives.
I
It's
think so.
interesting. It's interesting you say that because I remember another statistic. I love statistics and like polls. I love all that shit. Like listographs and the list. That's a Twitter page called Listopedia or something where all they do is just
Mm,
post different. Anyway, there was one that said that majority of most watched porn actually comes out of either the Bible Belt or like states like Utah, where it's well known that Mormons pretty much run the state. So I find it very interesting how in America, specifically because we don't live anywhere else, um, the more repressed the people, the crazier the sex, the wilder the desire. Because I feel like even for like on my side as a gay man, sometimes I don't know how it is for women, how freaky straight guys can get. But I've come into a lot of situations where I'm just like, wait, you want to do what sexually? And I'm just sitting there clutching my pearls, like, oh my God, I don't know if I want to do that. It's just, I
it's
feel.
funny you say America though, because when I think about some of the other countries I have lived in, they are not obsessed with porn the way we are. But I also think they're a little bit more sexually satisfied. So, what is it about the difference between Americans versus, say, Europeans?
Is there more or less like when you were there, did you
Mhm.
feel like the vibes were like what was the overall tone of the people? Because here in America, there's a very Christian, very, I go to
Right.
I do good by my neighbors, yada yada yada, all that here. What was the undertone of majority of the citizens when you were there?
So I find that they are a little bit more open.
Mm,
They are open with their sexuality. When I lived in Italy, um, they're a little bit more open to being in an open relationship with their partner. They're
mhm,
very honest about it. Not all of them, but some that I have met were like
mhm,
that. And I think that not everything is sexualized. So, for example, you go to the beach and there's topless women, and men don't think twice. It's just no different than them being topless. They don't look
yeah,
at you sexually. They
yeah.
just don't, they don't oogle at
Like we do
bodies the way we
here.
do. Yeah, like we've never
Yeah.
seen a naked body before. Ooh.
Because almost it feels like we don't. I mean, yeah, it's more
Mm-hmm.
prominent in our movies and in our television shows, but for the most part and for the majority of the time, I mean, up until what was it, the 19 like 50s or something, men and women slept in separate beds on television. So there was really no images of sex and desire unless you went to visit the museum and, looked at the Greece art from Greece or like Egyptian or whatever. But I just feel like, in America, I mean, it's one thing that to go into the whole gay world, but just in general, for the most part, it's always been like this fairy tale, like man meets woman, they fall in love, and then a baby magically manifests out of nowhere, and then you get a house and you live happily
Mm-hmm.
ever after. And I feel like because of that, it leads to sexual addictions and weird sexual desires because you're having to create this world on the side of your life to be able to get some kind of satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
But then what happens when
Mm-hmm.
that satisfaction just, goes away? And then I can see it turning into like a sexual addiction, like.
Right. It's interesting that we're doing this episode today because I've been reading the book The Truth
Hmm.
by Neil Strauss, the guy who
Hmm.
wrote the game.
Hmm.
And I read the game years ago. I reread it maybe 2 years ago, because it's pretty prevalent in my industry. There's a lot of men who read that book and think it's a how-to. It's not a how-to.
Wow.
And then he wrote the book The Truth, and The Truth kind of talks about how his experience during writing the book The Game, he is a sex addict. He is going through therapy in the book. He's talking about his experience going to therapy for a sex addiction and not understanding it. And
Hmm.
it was just really interesting timing that I happened to be reading this book and this story about this very well-known person.
Hmm.
And here we are starting our season 2 talking about sex addiction. So I'm excited to talk to our guest today. I think she's going to have so much insight for us.
Is she here?
She's here. I'm going to let her in.
Yay.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that she can fill us in on all kinds of information when it comes to sex addiction, cheating. The list of questions I have for her is just ridiculous. So hopefully I have time to ask them all, or we'll just have to beg her to come on again. But
Which will always be nice. We want to welcome you back before we even formally start talking to you, right?
welcome, Erica. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I appreciate it.
Hello to both of you. Thank you for having me. Can
Hello,
you hear me
hello.
okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
The whole online mic checking thing that we all do now, that we all like, this is like COVID protocol. Like when you get on a video call, can you see me and hear me?
Yeah.
Okay?
I don't know. I
Honestly.
kind of love it and hate it. It's like I
Yeah.
love it because I get to be home and
Uh-huh.
remote, but then I hate it because you do kind of miss like the human interactions of just,
Oh yeah.
breathing near another person.
For sure. Seriously, we lost so many interactions. We lost all of, like, I was breaking it down for a client the other day. I was like, you don't even realize like how many human interactions you lost. I said, think about that last day of work that you spent actually at work, the barista that you used to go see all the time,
Mhm.
the bar that maybe you went to happy hour more often,
Yep.
all of these interactions with all of these people that maybe weren't necessarily close to you, but you had a pattern, you had a ritual,
Yep.
you had things that disappeared like into
Ugh,
the
Into
ether
nothing.
to not return, at least yet.
Yeah.
still my heart.
I know.
I know.
So
I feel
y'all
like
my clients keep asking, why am I still so tired? I'm like, because we're still in the panorama. Like we're not,
Mhm.
it's not over yet. Like
It
we're
really
not done.
isn't.
And it's like we got like a giant cut and we have barely got some stitches on it. And we keep popping them. We keep popping
Yeah.
the stitches. So
Yeah.
it's not.
And we think the Neosporin is going to help, but it's not. It's really not going to help.
Sadly.
So I'm dying to jump in, but before
Let's
we
do it.
dive in too deep, I think there's a lot of confusion on how people define sex addiction. So
Sure.
could you start with what the clinical definition would be?
Okay. Let's start. First things first. I don't know if they know, the folks listening. So I am a clinical mental health therapist. So my master's degree is in clinical mental health counseling, and I'm currently getting doing my dissertation in clinical sexology. So essentially, I am a giant brain and sex nerd. That is what all of those titles mean. And for a living, I see people individually and in groups, helping them with whatever mental health issue is or whatever sexual health issue they may have. So that's what I do. That's what my background is.
That's awesome.
So I get to talk about brains and sex all day. It's kind of great. It really
It
is.
sounds
I do
great.
love
I'm
it.
like so intrigued. I'm like slightly jealous, but not.
There's enough work out here. Come do this.
I
Do
believe
this.
you. I believe you. Look at that nice cup of coffee you have. Yum.
I got some red Rubio's tea because I can't do caffeine after a certain time where I can't sleep.
Okay, well that looks just as delicious.
Well, while you sip your tea, our listeners probably don't realize that Kanan and Erica haven't met yet.
No.
This is kind of an introduction for them.
Kanan and I are friends already, though, I think.
Right, we are. It's like I feel like we've known each other. We've had coffee on Sunday. Well, me coffee, you maybe something different.
Cheers.
But cheers to you. Yes, cheers.
Yes.
But no, seriously, we've been excited because please, I mean, Andrea just asked you like to break down sexual addiction. I want to know too, because I have so many confusing ideas about it. Like, I think it's just people who like to watch. We were talking about OnlyFans and that whole thing that's happened.
I'm going to do a bonus episode on my show just because of all of this that's come down about OnlyFans.
Yeah.
We can talk about that too, for Pete's sake.
Yeah. But can you like really explain to people like what is sex addiction?
Okay. So y'all are going to get a little bit of fire probably from the comments that are going to be attached to
I love it.
what I'm about to say. Sex addiction is not a thing. It's not a thing. It's not in the DSM, which is our diagnostic. I'm going to hold it up here. Hold on.
Mind is already blown.
Y'all can't even see it. Y'all can't even see it on your listening, but it is not in this book, this giant book that we use to essentially diagnose people with whatever that they are, whatever's happening for them.
Oh,
it was considered to be added to the 5th edition, which is what was in my hand, of the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders. Now, let me tell you something about, I could be here just for 5 days on this. So the DSM, its entire function is to give us codes of vernacular or language to be able to speak to other professionals or insurance companies, to be able to treat people for specific mental health issues. Ultimately, many of these diagnoses, they're labels, as much as they're important for language and how we describe things, ultimately does not describe the entirety of human suffering. Okay. So let's just keep that in mind. Now, I say sex addiction because it is not a thing, because it is not a substance.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
It is not a drug. Sex is not a drug, and it is absolutely wrong to equate the two, because then you minimize the experience of those who actually have substance abuse issues. Okay, which we do have evidence that substance abuse is not only a biological, but an environmental and sociological problem. Okay,
but sex is not.
Sex is part of our biological functioning. It's how we all, can I swear?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
It's
Be
how we all
yourself.
fucking get here.
Yeah.
So now, can we have problematic sexual behaviors or out of control sexual behaviors? Yes, absolutely. And I'm going to describe to you what that could look like, because I have I have my own practice. I have my entire group practice. So I train therapists to do the work that I do. So y'all come to the Center for Mental and Sexual Health entirely online before COVID. So we got this. It's old news to us. So come
And
see
what's
us.
the website?
Mentalandsexualhealth.com.
And we'll make sure we put it in the details of the podcast too, so everyone can get access to that.
I appreciate that. And I'm kind of stoked because spoilers, Andrea's gonna come on my show too. So y'all,
nice.
And I would take Kanan too. I'd take you both.
Yeah, we can come as a package deal.
Yeah,
that would be so fun.
That would actually be really cool. I like that idea.
But anyway,
yeah.
As far as problematic sexual behaviors, these can look like behaviors that are actually interfering with your life. Like you can't get through the workday without masturbating 4 times. Like you can't get through an interaction with another person without running to the bathroom and masturbating. Those are problematic sexual behaviors, but they are not an addiction. They are typically the root of those is another reason, like whether it be anxiety or another mental health issue that has been untreated for a long time. Okay. Now,
so it's a symptom.
Yes,
in a way.
Yes, it very well could be like it's kind of like it is definitely a red flag, right? Like it's like, hey, something's not quite right. Something's going wrong. We need to figure out what's going wrong.
Gotcha.
So like, for instance, I've worked in the prison setting. I've worked with those who've committed sexual crimes. That we see problematic sexual behavior as a result of isolating people for a very long period of time. Guess what happened to all of us? We've all been in isolation, not the way that we do it in prison, but we have been isolated for quite a long time. And that really can mess with what we perceive our ideas of what our normal life or our normal behaviors would actually look like. So like when we put somebody in solitary confinement in a prison setting, oftentimes they will masturbate a lot. Why do you think they might do that? Just off the top of your head, why do you think they might do that?
Boredom and anxiety mixed together.
Yeah, but probably
stress.
If you turn it up to you turn the dial up to 12, because we are fundamentally meant for connection with other humans. We are meant for it. It is how we made it across the savannah and hunted down the woolly mammoth. We would shove a woolly mammoth over a cliff and then truck the meat back up the hill. But we did it as a tribe.
Yeah.
Right.
And when you get kicked out of the tribe, so isolated, it feels like to our biology and our whole body like death, because you've been isolated from the tribe. How did we get food before? Right? Like, how did we do that before? So if we isolate people and put them away and don't ever want to look at them, it makes our minds do strange things.
Do you think then people are going to be overly sexualized right now coming out of the pandemic? We're not coming out of a shit, let's be honest.
No, I think I mean there's definitely been people who have like researchers who have been kind of positing like we're gonna have a roaring 20s. We ain't there yet. I don't know. I don't know who's roaring, but I'm still in my house a lot of the time. So I don't know about y'all.
I think people are still scared in a way. Like we're like tiptoeing outside it. So we put one toe out. They were like, it's okay. But now they're telling me Delta might wipe me out. I'm gonna go back inside.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, think about it. Like we actually have a threat system that we have this wonderful part of our brain. It's called the amygdala. It is the actual smoke detector of the brain. That is what it does. That is its primary reason for existence. We have now put together our threat system with connection with other human people. that's messing with us. And the level of stress hormones that is running through our bodies for the last year and a half or more is significant, which when that amygdala goes off, it says like, yo, there's a cheetah. You need to be aware. Shit's going down. You're going to run. You're going to play dead, or you're going to fight. You're not having sex. You're not pooping. You're not eating. You're not doing any of those other things because your body and brain is primed to do one of those three things. So of course our sex drives are in the toilet. So of course we don't feel like doing a whole lot else because our threat system is like, yo, this ain't it.
So we're
I'm
like
tired.
collectively exhausted together because of this pandemic in a way.
Yes.
You know, I have to say, I've been feeling lately like my libido has been going. Like there was one point last year where it was pretty spiked. That was when I started to feel like freer, like around the summertime. They're like, okay, no more masks,
When the numbers
out,
came
fun.
down, we were all like, yeah. Yes.
And I was feeling like real confident, real sexy. And then once that uncertainty came back in, then it's like, oh, it explains so much.
Your amygdala is like, the cheetah's back. We'll be ready. Like that's what's happening, like in our brain. Like, but we don't want to circumvent that threat system. It is made to keep us alive. Like we need it.
And it feels like there's this need, this physical need, but at the same time, our brain is saying, yeah, but it's not safe yet. Don't do it. Don't do it. And I think that's where a lot of people are struggling, even just with dating. If you're single, if you have a partner, who cares? But if you're single, you're just screwed, and not in a good way.
Not in all the fun ways that we were doing in 2019.
I mean, could this type of situation, I mean, I know sex addiction is not really a full on thing, but this isolation that people have been feeling, I've been experiencing, not just feeling, but experiencing, could it have heightened or made people want to get into like exploring, looking at more pornography, exploring more fringe type sexual activities and stuff, just purely out of boredom? Like, I mean, if people masturbate more in isolation, since we're technically free because we're not in prison, does that cause people to then want to do that? Like, what drives that motivation sometimes?
It doesn't. I mean, masturbation is actually one of those, it is a tool that we've been given. Like, I actually encourage people, and again, I apologize if you're going to get some comments here. I encourage people, if they're having a hard time going to sleep, let themselves calm down and let themselves masturbate before they go to sleep.
I totally do this. And I can't believe I just said that, but like, I totally do that. If I can't sleep, that is the one thing that like calms me and it nurtures me and it puts me to sleep, and it's great. Yes,
it's like
I love
a sleeping pill, that one.
It is our quickest access to the best brain chemicals we've got. Like, it is incredible that we can do that. How freaking cool is that?
You know,
that we can do that.
Why do you think some not to pivot the conversation, but just an objective opinion on this, why do you think so many different cultures and religions around the world kind of require its members to suppress that? There's so much
We're definitely opening up a very, very, we could be here just on this for the entire episode.
That's true.
The religious shame around sex is huge. Around our bodies is huge. I grew up in an evangelical Christian household. I am no longer an evangelical Christian. I am a person of faith, but I am not that because of the shaming and the essential, like, your body is wrong. If you want to touch your body is wrong. If you have sex outside of this very narrow box, that is wrong. And you are wrong. You are wrong. Like, I'm part of the Alphabet Mafia. I don't know about either of you. I am a bisexual woman. My existence is wrong when it comes to very specific religious sex. So that's pretty gnarly shame that we have also tied to back to what we were talking about in the beginning, a tribe, right? We have tied that shame. If you do not follow these rules, you do not get to stay in the tribe.
Yeah,
That's a big risk, right?
that is a huge.
So I don't fault anybody, and I don't look at anybody and I don't think like, oh, you're stupid for being religious. Not that at all,
Yeah,
because
no.
I grew up in it.
Right.
I know how thick that is and what it would
Mhm.
actually mean to say, no, this is not right for me.
It's the whole tribe thing again. It's
It
like
is.
to break. I mean, for many people, that part of their life is such a huge part of their identity.
Yes.
You know, from rearing years through teenage years, they've had a
Mhm.
lot of like big moments, and church members or whatever have been involved
Absolutely.
in those moments. So of
Mhm.
course, I can see the pressure to still follow the tradition, but I also
Yes.
understand that we are all humans and we all have
Mhm.
varied desires.
Right.
And I don't know. I feel like that shame that's being put on a lot of different people and a lot of different groups and just
Mhm.
women in general, honestly,
Mhm.
leads to a lot of these weird sex things in America. Like I was talking to Andrea earlier in the pre-show, we were talking about her experience in Europe versus here and how in
Mm.
America it feels like we're more repressed sexually and we're not
Mhm.
as open about our lives and the
Mhm.
human experience, which then leads to a lot of these interesting sex addictions and whatnot. Now,
Mhm.
what do you describe as a sex addiction? If it was a thing, is it the process of masturbating a lot? Is it hooking up with people a lot? Like, what is it?
So first and foremost, I don't even use the vernacular. So I don't even use the word sex addiction, because
Okay.
again, like it puts it in the camp of drug addiction, and that
What
is
can we
not.
call it that's a little bit more accurate?
Well, and Doug Braun Harvey, bless this man. He's done a ton of research and I've been trained by him, and I know a lot of colleagues that have been trained by him. He's done a ton of the research around problematic sexual behaviors or out of control sexual behavior. So that's what we call it, out of control sexual behavior, because
Okay,
it's
out
what
of
it
control.
is.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what it is.
yeah. Okay. Out
So
of
like
control sexual behavior.
that's a lot of words. It is a lot of words, and it doesn't sound as marketable as sex
Intriguing
addiction,
as sex addiction. Yeah,
or as marketable. Remember that there's
that
money to be
that's
made
Yeah.
there.
true.
There's
That's
money,
true.
money to be made. And there's a lot of money that has been made off of that too.
Yes.
Mhm.
How many celebrities do you know? Well,
Are
maybe
going
not
to
personally.
rehab.
Going to
for
rehab for their sex
sex
addiction.
We were just talking about
Whatever.
it. In fact, before
Whatever.
we brought you in, we were talking about how I'm reading the book The Truth by Neil Strauss, and how he's talking about having a sex addiction and being in rehab for it. And so that's really what like caught my attention, was that I mean, how do you define sex addiction? But you don't. So we're going to just call it problematic or out of control sexual behavior. That is a mouthful.
It is. It's a mouthful, but it's also like the sex addiction camp, because there's an entire certification behind that, y'all. Like this is big business, what we're talking about.
Mhm.
That camp comes from the 12-step model, which is from the treating drug addiction model.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right.
So they have equated the two. But again and again, when we scan the brain, when we watch these behaviors, when we go through this, it is not like drug addiction.
Mhm.
They want to equate the two because they make the argument that it involves brain chemicals, but these are brain chemicals made for you by you.
Mhm.
It's not like methamphetamine. It's not like cocaine. It is not like any of the other people who
It's
are
like no outside substance. Yeah.
What about opiate addiction, which has killed hundreds and thousands of people around the world, but specifically Americans?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But we're worried about somebody masturbating too much. And I just did air quotes for y'all, because a majority of the time when I get a call from someone who says that they are struggling with sex addiction, it is usually not from the person. It is from their partner, and their partner has already diagnosed it.
I love
So
when people
it's-
diagnose.
So it's basically someone who's
You
doing
can't see
whatever
my
it is that
sarcastic
they're
face, you people.
doing, and then their partner is like, I think you're a sex addict because you want it way too much from me. Or
Mm,
some of those situations where I've heard where a couple opens up, becomes an open relationship, and then one
Mhm.
actually enjoys it a whole lot more than the other partner. And then
Mhm.
that partner gets jealous, and then they accuse them of
Yes.
sexual addiction.
Yes. Or the other thing I hear from people is somebody has a porn addiction,
mhm.
because they masturbate to porn once a day and they see porn as cheating.
Speaking of masturbation, I'm curious because I've heard different things from different coaches out there, mostly dating coaches. And it really got me wondering how accurate their information is. They talk about masturbation in relationships.
Okay.
And from what I've heard, there is a divide amongst dating coaches of whether or not masturbating while in a relationship is good, whether it's bad, whether it should be done, whether it shouldn't be done. And the look on your face, I can't wait to hear your response.
I can't even with this. I can't with this. And I love y'all. It's something I love about Andrea is that Andrea got an education, y'all. She got an education and she doesn't step out of her lane. I love y'all dating coaches, but please get educated and make sure you're staying in your lane. If you don't know something, or if you are not, there is no harm. I still to this day refer to people that other than myself when I don't know a thing or don't work on a thing.
Yeah.
It is okay if you don't know a thing. YouTube cannot teach you everything.
Exactly. It's okay to delegate sometimes.
So it's always okay. There's enough work out here.
Exactly.
Workout
For everyone.
Okay. So all that being said, masturbation is entirely a healthy thing. Now, there are practices that are more spiritual practices that would argue with me. There are people who practice certain kinds of different kinds of tantra that call for people who have penises and semen, call it their sexual energy, and that if you use too much of it, you reduce your testosterone. Ultimately, hormones don't fucking work like that.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Our body is actually really good at regulating its hormones. And when it's not, that's a problem. And we should investigate it with science.
Yeah. When should you investigate it with are there any warning signs that you would suggest?
Yes, absolutely. So as we age, and for some people it can happen where you experience perimenopause very early. So and menopause is essentially the natural period of people who have vulvas and uteruses, the period of time where our hormones start to very much change because our reproductive organs are starting to change, and actually the body will eventually absorb them, which I don't know how many people actually realize that when you go through menopause, your body will actually absorb your ovaries.
Oh my God. If only you could see Kanan's face right now. It is amazing. Process that for a second as a male. Go ahead and process that.
And then for those who have penises and testicles, you go through a change as well as you get through life, as you get through your 40s into your 50s. Your hormones do change, but those hormones can be tested, and they should be tested by somebody who is a qualified medical professional that is licensed, that is actually knows what they're looking at and knows what's typical and can suggest treatments.
Can you say that again for all of the men who are listening, who are approaching their 40s out there that think they know everything?
Oh my God.
Could you say that one more time for them?
Please go get your hormones tested by a qualified medical professional that knows what they're looking for.
I did that. I went because I was wondering about my levels, and I went to my doctor, and my testosterone levels were in the 700s. No, I think it was 1,000 something actually. It was really high. I was like, holy shit.
Yes.
But that's interesting to learn that about the changes in our body and how it just changes us sexually. I kind of feel
we don't stop developing.
We never.
People think that we stop developing into puberty. No, we have an entire rest of the development cycle that ends in death. Like that's how
Yeah.
we all get through this entire life. Like
Yeah.
it's not just sectioned off. It's
Yeah.
an entire experience that we all
Yeah.
go through. And I also want to say this too, that I think this might be helpful because there are absolutely hormonal issues that come up for
Mhm.
people. And they actually, I just had a friend go through something without saying too much information. Most people are unaware, like they think that there's only 2 sets of chromosomes, that we're on a binary when it comes to our chromosomes, like
Mhm.
XX and XY, when in reality, we actually have 20 different combinations. And so the idea of like the gender binary all by itself is like really ridiculous. But that being said, like when this person went through the testing of their hormones, because they had a lot, they started losing hair, they started like having weight fluctuations, but they also started having like hot flashes, and they
Mhm.
couldn't figure out what was happening for them. So it turned out they did a chromosomal test, and this person had an XXY. So their chromosomes were not, they weren't the age for perimenopause. Their chromosomes were dictating what was happening with their hormones.
Oh, wow.
And so the way that the doctors were treating them was like woman, man, but that wasn't at all what was happening in their chromosomes.
Wow, it's way more complex than we even know.
Yeah.
Science.
Gosh. My mind has been blown a few times in this episode. I'm almost like, I wish this episode could come out sooner because this is like out of control. All the information we're getting.
We need so much more science, like information when we're younger. Like that's what it boils down to.
Oh my God.
Really
I remember
do.
my high school when I was taking sex education, the only information we ever got was this is chlamydia, this is gonorrhea,
Yep.
how a baby is born, goodbye. Not the
And don't do it.
And don't do it. Not the
Yep.
complexity of sexuality, not the complexity of desire, not the cells, nothing. Like absolutely, it was like very basic. And it's almost like you wonder why people are getting pregnant left and right or doing interesting things sexually, because we're just like almost
why
ignorant.
are we teaching sex ed separately from biology is what I want to know.
Yeah.
Why?
I mean, it's one and the
Why?
same.
It's like it's how we all fucking get here.
Yeah. Yeah, because we don't learn about that in biology. It's mostly just about, organisms, plants, and that's about it. But it's like,
what are we?
We push the body into this little closet and don't really talk about it unless we absolutely have to. And when we do, someone is shaming at the exact same time that they're telling us about it.
Exactly.
It's wild. I have it's like a weird question. So sexually, for some people, they like to, when they're having sex, they're being intimate, they like to reenact things that are in, let's say, porn videos, whether they're with a partner or with a stranger. There are times where some people, I don't know if it's the same with women and other kinds of, I'm only speaking from gay men. I've noticed that when it comes to maybe completion or maybe even the act of, they're mimicking a lot of what they see in the videos. And oftentimes they cannot come to completion if it's not identical or at least close to what they've seen. What do you think that is? And what is this mind thing that is playing on people when they are having sex?
So back to like us not having enough education. Think about where people did get their education from.
I got it from porn. I'm going to be completely honest.
Porn.
Yeah.
Where did, like, a majority of anybody especially anybody who's probably 46 and younger.
Yeah.
That's especially with the entire requirement across the United States for a very long time of abstinence only education. How and it sure as hell did not talk about the gay kid.
No.
It sure as hell did not talk about the bi girl. Sure as hell did not talk about the lesbians. Like none of that was addressed. It was this is how babies are made and all done. It's like, but what about any one of the rest of us that want to do anything else? So I think it's not to say I don't think sexual material is wrong. I don't. And we've been making sexual material and of course we all call it porn, but ultimately sexual material includes a lot of things, not just videos and pictures and books and erotica
You
and
just made me think
audio
about the
erotica.
maternity dolls at the museum that you see sometimes.
Yes,
Yeah.
we have sexual material all over. And guess what? Every time we invent something, we use it for sexual material. We
Mhm.
literally did it on freaking rocks before we even had paper. We found
Yeah.
it in ancient Egypt on
Mhm.
walls.
Yeah.
Like sexual material is actually part of our culture. And yeah, I apologize
always
again for all
been,
the
I guess.
comments y'all are gonna get.
No, it's totally fine because, I'm glad you brought this up, Kanan, because even I've personally done that. I've watched certain things in porn videos and thought, you know what, I want to freaking try that. And then brought it back to my partner and we tried it out and we like explored with it. But I know that I hear a lot from women, especially, that men think that every sexual encounter with them is going to be like this huge like porn scenario. And they're like, sex with me is not always like porn video, guys. So
and sex with them isn't like a porn video, for goodness sake.
That's for damn sure.
Like,
which is why I don't understand.
Well, and that's the thing. And I think it has a lot to do with like monkey see, monkey do, right? Like we are mammals, and a lot of the way that we learn to do things is not only just familial, it's biological, but it's also from mimicry. Like, when you watch a baby, like I promise I'm not going to talk about babies and porn. That's not where this is going. Like, it is fundamentally like when you do a thing with a baby, like if you do like, like little like sock puppet hands, or if you do like squeeze hands, they'll mimic you. They will watch you and they'll mimic your face and they'll do what do you think we're humans are doing with porn? We're mimicking what we see. And it isn't necessarily bad until not everybody has given consent for that to happen.
Yeah.
And I think a majority of humans have never seen what it takes to actually make a porn.
That's for sure.
I think it just it creates this world where people miss out on connecting with one another because we're not actually asking our partner what actually turns them on. We're just assuming, oh, I know you want to be treated like that little twink in that video I saw getting jammed in a corner and, banged down. It's like, actually, no, I don't want that. Or there's this misconception. Everybody wants a big cock up inside of them, but no, some people actually don't want that. That's actually quite painful. So it's like there's this misconception that it creates. And do you think that there's a conditioning that can happen? Like, can you self-condition yourself to only want sex a certain kind of way? Like, if you look at it I
think we can create repetition in the brain with a lot of shit. Porn and anything else.
Okay.
You know how many people I am teaching, just trying to help them not treat their inner self like a piece of shit. Like that too. Like it's I think we want to take sex and make it this unique thing because it's been made taboo, especially in the United States, for so long. We want to create this box around it and say, well, it's unique to this. No, the same people who are like doing only one rhythmic, very specific patterned way to have any kind of sex that are doing the same kinds of patterns in their head about themselves, right? Like our brain is incredibly flexible. There's actually a really good book out that's new by David Eagleman. It's called Livewired, and it's about like more recent neuroscience about what we know about the brain and its ability to be malleable. So when we think a thing again and again and again, it's like you have created a physical pathway in your brain. You've created something in your brain. You can't see it, but you've created a physical pathway in your brain. So when you're trying to create something new, it's very difficult because you still have that branch that you created before, that the brain is like, but this is easier. Because the brain is an association machine. It goes, oh, here's an easy way. Here's an easy way. Here's an easy way. It moves information quickly, not accurately. It is a thinking machine. It is made to move information quickly, not accurately.
So you could actually, let's say I'm the kind of guy, my brain is just frying right now. I'm just
You're
like,
like, that's too much, Becca. It's too much. I'm
this
sorry. I told you nerd, and when I start, it's like verbal diarrhea.
No, because it just has me thinking about. I mean, Andre, go ahead. I feel like I've been like dominating the conversation.
No, that just totally made me wonder about so many other things when it comes to sex. And something that came to mind was sexual asphyxiation, right?
Yes.
Or BDSM or anything of that realm.
Yes.
And
which is a lot more common than people think, by the way.
It absolutely
is.
Really?
And it's actually one of the top things we fantasize about too, is a collective.
Yeah. So is it normal? Is it natural? Is it acceptable? I guess that's really
yes, and yes. As long as everybody's on board, right? Like that's the piece that really, really, really matters. Are all the adults involved? And I do mean adults, y'all, like 18 and over.
Yeah.
Like
with consent.
With consent and consent along the way. Like, hey, yo, how you feeling about this? Oh, is this sexy? Do you like this? Oh, is it good when I touch you like this? Do you like it when I do this? Like, and I'm telling y'all, do not play with sexual asphyxiation. I can't do it either, Andrew.
Mouthful.
Is that where you like
so many
hold
consonants?
Is where you hold affect
Usually
your breathing
choking.
or something? You're choking yourself?
Usually it's I'm dating myself here really quick. It's how David Carradine died. The guy from Kill Bill. Died from sexual asphyxiation. And it's not to put him out there on blast, but I think that I think him dying that way, like put it out there that, like there's actually a lot of people that really do like choking or like pressure or like to feel like their breath is being taken away. Like there is a taboo, right? Like what do we love to play with as humans?
Fire.
The taboo, fire. How risky can we get it? Is it, could I get caught? Oh, is somebody going to watch me? Oh, is it, Dr. Justin Lee Miller wrote a wonderful book called Tell Me What You Want. And it's all about our fantasies. Y'all go read it. It's so good. And he actually did, because Justin's been on my show, but he also, he did a training with us and he showed this amazing word cloud. Like it was just so helpful to kind of just see, it's just this visual representation of all of the words that people are often using to describe the things that they are fantasizing about. And BDSM is one of the biggest ones. Kink is one of the biggest ones. Having group sex is one of the biggest ones. And it's because we have these fantasies about being, having all of the sexual attention on us. So, and group sex, at least as far as our definition goes, is any more than 2. So threesomes and up, right?
Okay.
So we're all fantasizing about a lot of these different kinds of themes, and BDSM we're fantasizing about because of the riskiness to any of the behaviors or the taboo nature of any of the behaviors, or even the power dynamics we're masturbating to.
Yeah. Because
power and how you give up power or take power can be really, really sexy.
Yeah.
And it becomes problematic when not everybody's on board.
Like some men who become really successful and that kind of manifests its way through like their sex energy. And it almost gets to a point where it's like they have to constantly, this is just me saying this, but they have to constantly be having sex. And if they're not having sex, they're not being like, I guess you would say that if they're not being praised in that way, they feel like they're missing out on something. It's like the more they conquer, the better they feel. And once that starts to wane, then their self-value starts to deflate with that. I find it interesting sometimes of how so much of our self-worth at time is linked to our sexual desire. Because even for myself, some days I'm thinking that I could be wanting sex, but no, I want to be sexually desired, which is like 2 different things. It's like, I could be thinking, oh, do I want to masturbate? No, not really. I just want someone to look at me and be like, oh, he is sexy. I want him. What is that?
But let's break that down. Like, I want to be desired. What does that even mean to you?
I think on a deeper level, it's, I want to feel like I don't know. I know sex is something we all want. So I
Yeah.
guess in my way, I want to feel like people want me to be a part of that sex for them.
Mhm.
Or maybe it comes from me feeling like I wasn't a part of what we were talking about earlier, our clan, the community. And
Yes.
maybe for that, I'm equating my
Mhm.
sex appeal, because in the gay community, it's, I mean, the sexier you are, the easier your life. And in the rest of the world, the sexier you are, the easier your life.
Yes.
So even for certain people where they start to age, people start to say, oh, you lost it. We got to go for the younger ones. And that's purely based on sexual desire. And I'm just starting to feel like so much of the world is in some way, shape, or form linked to sex. So I feel like if I have this sexual desire that people want to fuck me, then I have a better chance of maybe being a working actor, being more successful, having better networking skills, having more self-confidence when I'm meeting people. I mean, there are men who think that if their dick was bigger, they have a better life, when really that has nothing to do with it.
No, I mean, and I hate to, I know this person is attracted to some people, but I always think about like what each one of us finds us to be attractive is very different.
Yeah.
And like, and I think there is this kind of cultural myth that we all have this understanding of what attractiveness it's really, really upsetting. And I hate that I know I'm the white lady saying this, but it's also based in whiteness a lot of the time. Like what is attractive, at least what we put out into the media and what we decided, especially before today, the prior 20 years, there was a lot of white faces on television. There was a lot of white faces shown as the most sexy person alive, right?
Yeah.
Here in the United States.
Yeah.
So desire is really unique to each one of us. And the more that we allow ourselves to understand that what we desire individually is okay, one, and two, the more that you understand what your partner or partners desire, it may not be at all what you think it's supposed to be, in quotation marks. So
yeah,
like,
I can't.
I'm supposed to, as a woman, I am supposed to desire the high school football quarterback guy. That dude was the most annoying fucking human being alive to me.
Super douche
In my world. I was always attracted to nerdy girls and nerdy boys. And I ended up marrying a very hairy, tall, nerdy boy. That's what I desire. That is where my desire sits. As far as appearance, as a part physical appearance goes. But I also desire intellectual prowess. Woo! Girl boner for me in a real quick minute. If somebody who's talking to me is smart, it's like, I'm like,
especially nowadays where it seems like, you know, brain skills are like going out the door. It's like critical thinking. They're always saying people should have more critical thinking. I'm like, I wish.
Yes. And I really, well, I do think that there is a problem with how we have, of course, like we could be here all day, how the media has really, really fucked up and put gasoline on like creating teams.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go too far off the path, but I think it is important to understand that we don't teach critical thinking skills until roughly high school, college.
Yeah.
We don't teach people how to evaluate sources until roughly high school, college. Why do we wait so long? Why do we wait so long when we are especially our kids now are on the fire hose of the internet?
Pretty much. I mean, they're like
So
4 years old having a full-blown education in whatever topic they
Mhm.
want because of Wikipedia.
my kid love Kierkegaard. I don't know if y'all have ever seen it. It's like an animated educational show. He loves to learn about black holes. That kid knows more about black holes than I have ever known in my entire life. And because of YouTube and because of that
Mhm.
wonderful access. But the other side of that is that how is a kid supposed to know, how's an adult supposed to know what a reliable source looks like if you've never ever been taught how to do that? That was
Right.
like day one English honors in my freshman year.
Yeah.
And not everyone goes to college. So
No.
what about those who don't finish high school and those who don't attend college?
Exactly.
Yeah, there's some courses I took in college. I'm just sitting here like, why isn't this being taught at least in the
Exactly.
8th grade? And it's just
Oh,
a
yeah.
shame that you have to wait until you're able to spend all this extra money, which is fine. I am not
Yeah.
against the higher education, but it's just a real disservice to people
Mhm.
and their critical thinking skills and
Yes.
and their common sense skills, honestly,
Yes.
to keep all of this information away from people. And I feel like the things we talked about today, whether it's about, the stuff we do sexually or the way we
Yes.
conduct ourselves or the way I think of
Mhm.
myself in this place, in this world, or what you thought about yourself. I feel like
Yes.
it all comes from this weird miseducation and misinformation that we are plagued with in America, because it's
Mhm.
unless you are someone that actually actively seeks out further education or more information about something, we are all going on, oh, this is what I learned in a porn, or this is what I saw on Oprah, or this is what Joe Rogan talked about. And it's just like, you have to go further than that. You have to check the sources, I could go on forever about that, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, and most of us are working 40 or more hours a week.
Mhm.
Most of us are either raising your own families, or you're a single person, or you're in a roommate situation, and you're just trying to get through the day. Like, you're just trying to get through it. And like verifying all the sources
That takes
seems like a
time.
lot of
Yeah.
time and a lot of effort.
We don't even have time to masturbate. When am I going to find time to
Shit.
check your sources?
Yeah. Like, if you get 5 minutes in to rub one out in the morning, like, you don't.
Speaking of which, this is rent. I don't know if women have an something that's equal to this. Men who can be premature ejaculators, let's say, where it's like you get so excited about the sex that it happens right away. Like, is there something that women go through that's kind of the equivalency of that?
I mean, yes, but it's often not seen as a problem, in quotation marks, right?
Okay.
Because many times a vulva is being penetrated, so the vulva can keep being penetrated often, and so that's usually not seen as a problem until it becomes like, if it becomes painful for a person who's like having an orgasm, or having multiple orgasms, or having orgasms all day, which absolutely can happen.
I've heard of that. I was like, what is that like? Oof.
Well, I can't even, like, can you imagine like all of those nerve endings firing all of the time? It would eventually get really, really painful.
I would be so tired. I'll take sleeping pills just to
get
a break.
I can't. I think that the person, he identified as a man. There was an AMA on Reddit. The guy who has 2 penises. I know y'all are gonna go Google that. Go Google it. It was really interesting to hear him talk about like what it was like to have 2 penises, and they were both. One of them was very functional, and then the other one was semi-functional. And how, like, when he would orgasm, he would need to essentially sleep. He would have to, because of like how much blood flow would have to go to his penis.
Wow.
Penis eye. I like that. My penis eye.
So, but I think this again comes back to our education about genitalia. Like, we all have essentially the same, very similar parts. They're just in different configurations. And so I'm going to hold it up and y'all, I don't know, they can see this, but the folks listening can't see it. So I am holding up what's called the clitoral organ.
It
Ooh,
looks like a
This-
wishbone.
It
It
does
does.
look like a wishbone.
With
So
With
the
two
part that you
tongues.
can actually see is this part, and it's covered by the vulvular hood right here.
mhm.
And then the rest of this, though, is all throughout the lips of the vulva. And then this right here would be where the opening of the vagina would be. So the vagina is the inside, the vulva is the outside. And then the urethra would be like right about here between these two, right about here. So this is all full of nerve endings. And the penis actually has something similar, like the entire shaft of the penis. And then it has branches like this that go towards the testicles. So
Mhm.
they're actually very similar in their configuration. They just look different from the outside. And there's so many different configurations of genitalia. That's the other thing I wish we would put in our biology classes, is that so you could see so many different vulvular arrangements. So you
Yeah.
could see so many different penises and how long they are, how short they are, how wide they are, how thin they are. So that
Mhm.
people could see and start to normalize that our
Everything-
genitalia looks different. It doesn't look like these especially in porn. I that's why I encourage people to find like ethically sourced porn as much as they possibly can, because one,
Ethically
you know,
sourced. That's first I'm hearing that.
I mean, it sounds like we're getting ethically sourced food, right? Like,
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like it does.
Fair trade.
Fair trade porn,
Fair trade porn.
organic
I watch organic porn made in the valley.
with my oat milk latte. Fuck.
No, but seriously, please, what's ethnically
Mm.
Sourced?
Ethically
source
sourced porn.
porn? Yeah.
So this essentially, you know, everybody who's involved wants to be there and isn't being trafficked.
Okay. That's important.
You're paying for it. So you're paying the sex workers, you're paying the people who are involved in the pornography. You're not just getting it for free from Pornhub.
Okay.
Darn.
And I know y'all, I know it's tough.
Even the
I know it's
amateur
tough out here.
videos, you should probably
And-
get away from, like,
Well,
people uploading their
unless you're
hookups.
I mean, coming back to OnlyFans, what a fuck up, man. Like, why would you take all of those sex workers off?
I know
Why?
it seems really
Why?
dumb in hindsight. Like, there's a lot. It's like
Does
when
anybody
Tumblr
talk about
did it.
Tumblr? Does anybody talk about Tumblr anymore? No,
No.
porn's gone.
Exactly. It's like the only reason people went on there. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. The only reason I went on there was for
Same.
that. And then when
Same.
they got rid of that, I'm like, what do I need this app for? Now I'm just on Twitter
Yep.
most of the time.
Yep, I
But,
deleted Tumblr. I was
Yeah.
like,
So fuck Tumblr? I mean, I don't go on OnlyFans because I haven't got. I mean, I did pay one time. I'm like, I feel like I shouldn't even reveal this because it might say something about me. But
Mm.
I was intrigued by this one OnlyFans page with these guys
Yeah.
from prison showing their dicks. I was like, that's
You're
interesting.
like, okay, well, I'll see. Let's
Yeah.
see what that's all
It
about.
was interesting until you could start hearing the conversations in the background, and then you're like, wait, this is actually a fucking prison. Like, okay, this is weird. I need to get out of this OnlyFans page. So I had to quit that one real quick. But yeah, I feel
But
bad
still,
for like people have been able to.
but look at the consent there, though.
It is
like-
full on consent.
Fully consenting. You paid them. They got money for that.
It's
And
entertainment.
they agreed to be there, right? Like it wasn't somebody who was stolen off
Yeah.
of the street, who
Mhm,
was then made to be there and not paid to be there.
mhm.
So
Now they say that it's because of the financing companies or wanting to get away from that.
Ooh.
I feel like it's
Mm.
backed behind some kind of
You know what?
Puritan.
oh,
like,
either way,
ugh.
why is a banking company concerned about what I'm paying for? That's none of their
Yeah.
damn business.
This is true.
None of their business. I feel very strongly about this. I also
That
feel
is
very,
actually very
very,
true.
very strongly about because I have friends and I have people who I have worked with who are sex workers who chose to be sex workers, who were not
Mhm.
trafficked,
Yeah.
who help people incredibly. Like
Yeah.
they can do work with a person that I can't as a therapist who cannot touch people.
Yeah.
I think
I've
it's
worked with
great
people who are
to,
sexual surrogates who can have me and the client and the sex surrogate can
right.
have a session, and I can help the sex surrogate will make some agreements with the client to be able to, maybe they're a person who is 42 years old who's never had any sexual experiences.
That's why I think it's really good to pick a filmmaker or
Yes.
a production company that you really resonate with. Like, here's an example. I'll
Mhm.
give you mine. And now everyone's going to know who I watch.
Okay.
Erica Lust. I don't know if you've
Love
heard
Erica
of her.
Lust.
Yes.
Love
Thank
Erica Lust.
God. I
Oh, she makes
love her shit.
amazing. Yeah, her work is incredible. Incredible work.
I found her because Netflix did a show, an
Mhm.
episode about her. And so then I researched her and looked her up, and I was just like, I love her work. It's amazing.
Yeah,
And she's an ethically sourced
she is.
producer and filmmaker
Mhm.
because, for one, I love her approach. I mean, it's still typical porn. You're still getting
Mhm.
everything, that you could want from porn, but you can tell it's all consensual.
Yes.
And a lot of it is about making sure that if it's men and women, that the woman is being pleased.
Yes. Orgasms are real. That's what I love about Belisa.
Yes.
Bellesa. Also
Yeah.
a wonderful, ethically sourced. Pink TV is another one that's
Mhm.
really, really great. Again, all the people want to be there. They're
Right.
paid to be there, and all the pleasure that's on the film that you are seeing is real.
Yeah. It's
It's not like
amazing.
fake acted, because I hate those porns where you could tell they're not really enjoying it. I'm like, you're not enjoying it, I'm not enjoying it, we're all
Yeah,
suffering.
everybody. I've gotten to the point where if I see some sexual material where the woman looks like she's in pain, like
Ugh,
it's like fake orgasm and it's more like pain face.
yeah,
And I know some people are into pain. I'm not that girl. That's not for me.
yeah.
But and it's free. I'm like, no, okay, you're in pain because you're not getting paid here. Okay.
You're probably right.
Let's go watch the stuff where I know that this person is being paid properly.
Wow. These are things I never even thought of. It makes me almost feel like we should rename the episode in a way. Because we were talking about like sex, what we thought was sexual addiction was really just out of control sexual behavior. And I
Mhm.
think we all know someone like that. So
Yes.
I hope that those listening really got something from this episode, because I know I did, like, on multiple times. And if you're listening, please watch this show actually on our Patreon, because the model you showed was very interesting in how you explained
Mhm.
the female genital.
Mhm.
How do I say it? The genital area without sounding like a nerd, or without sounding like
Hey,
genitalia.
nerds are great.
Yeah. I mean, yes, nerds are great, but I'm just like, I just. Anyway,
it's cool. You're a sexy nerd now. That's
Yeah.
all.
I am.
Sex nerd. Honorary sex nerd.
Yeah, definitely watch, because wow, Erica.
You're going to want to see that. Like,
Yeah.
all of our listeners are going to want to see,
Yeah.
that they're listening to that segment of it and going,
Mhm.
damn, I should be seeing this instead. So
Yeah.
Let's go to the Patreon.
And
Yes.
your website that you mentioned at the top of the show, please
Mm-hmm.
repeat it so we know how to get in contact with you.
Absolutely. Mentalandsexualhealth.com. If you want to listen to the show, it's Sex Talk with Erica. You can find it on any platform that y'all get your podcasts on, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all things. And send reviews, like especially on Apple Podcasts. It's how and review this wonderful podcast that I am on right now, because that's how we get found, y'all.
Yes, that is how we get found, and connecting with wonderful people like yourself.
Same, y'all are wonderful. This has been a joy.
This is
absolute joy.
I love this conversation, Andrea.
With that said, just a reminder, please follow us, give us a review, like us, listen to us, do all of the things. You can find us on social media as Date Smarter Sexier. And remember that if you are a Patreon subscriber, you get the post show. You listeners, well, you're just kind of shut out of luck on that one, aren't you? Again, Erica, thank you for being with us. And until next time.